Hello, this will be part three in this shorter series that I've been making in regards to so-called ancient anti-gravity, ancient lost technology. Links to part one and two will be in the description, as well as some other related videos in regards to stone cutting, drilling holes through granite and these types of things. It's all on the record. There's so much of it out there, and it's, well, yeah, it's the historical record, still doing it now. It was never lost. It's still being done. Basic physics, some basic principles. Talk to a stonemason, talk to someone who works in rigging and lifting, and you can get these answers and the history again. Unbroken history of this going back centuries. But moving massive stones. So again, self-explanatory. Okay, now this is a Thunderstone in Russia, and by all reasonable accounts, it is the largest megalith that has ever been moved. And there's because it, just like with the Romans moving massive stones, lifting massive stones, this destroys the narrative in regards to lost high technology, ancient anti-gravity, and so it's either completely overlooked or they try to diminish it and pick it apart. And to defend certain infomercialists, they all of a sudden become very skeptical about this, yet the same skepticism isn't applied to the fantastic unsubstantiated claims in regards to lost high technology. That's the definition of an echo chamber. Skepticism goes both ways, against the alternative and against orthodoxy, and if you focus only on one and only listen in one, you're going to get stuck in there. So the Thunderstone, 1868, was dug up from a half buried in a marshy piece of land under the Catherine the Great. She wanted to use this. We'll see the ultimate location of it. But this was witnessed by hundreds of people. Catherine the Great visited the site several times. Many foreigners were involved in the project. Foreign dignitaries come and witnessed it. It was something of to show off, and they wanted other people to see that it wasn't done in the dead of night. And and again, lots of our history of work orders, contracts still survive to this day. Lots of records in regards to it. Half buried in marshland, was moved with a sled. They waited until the winter and the ground froze, and it was approximately 6 miles from the site to get then to the sea when it was put on a barge. We'll have a look at that in a moment, but it was moved with sleds, and they use these bronze spheres. You can see these like ball bearings, but we'll again have examined that as well. No animals or machines were used in it. It was used with men, and the technology they were using was exactly the same technology that was used on shipping at the time, sail ships, and exactly the same technology used on ancient sail ships. This is and back through time, lots unbroken record of it, lots of depictions, descriptions, writings going back over 2,000 years in quite some detail. And but of course, the Romans inherited a lot of their knowledge. They didn't just pop up out of the ground. Yes, so the bronze bearings. Now that might be, oh well, they didn't have bronze well, not necessarily that they didn't have them in ancient times, but the thing is, they didn't really need them. And even to move this particular stone, they didn't need them. It was a relatively modern innovation. However, they could have used wooden rollers such as the Siberian cedar, and cedar is a very important feature. We'll mention that as well. I've got into this in other videos, but it's worth putting it in this collection rather than a piecemeal, because again, you just got to, you just build up the record in this thing, in this stuff, and it just blows 99% of it completely out of the water. Capstans, or a winch and lever, simple tools, and we have a block and tackle, again, common sail technology going back millennia. And again, mechanical advantage, a small amount of force, so they didn't have to actually move 1,500 tons. Firstly, because it was moving along the ground, it wasn't being lifted. So the dead weight lift is different from moving across the ground. It's something that's commonly misinterpreted. But anyway, ancient Roman technology is shown. This is from the ladder and obelisk, 450 tons, lifted into the air, spun, and then set back down on the ground, which is a very impressive feat, because this stone and so many of these other larger stones never actually had to be lifted or leave. They never left the ground. And again, a winch, it's just the equivalent. This is ancient sail technology. There's lots of Roman pictures of sail ships, of their cranes, and this, again, ancient knowledge. This is the ancient technology. Covered in an earlier episode, just a recap. So we have the block and tackle, these ropes, now it's, or a pulley. Now you can, these pictures are lifting applications, but you can use this for moving it across ground. As we see there, they're moving it, and so the lifting is different to moving across ground. Again, exactly the same technology used by Ed Leeds Scalnan in the Coral Castles. Actually, film of him doing it. He's lifting stones and moving large stones horizontally without breaking a sweat. One man. This is how the stone looks now. Now, it was carved en route, so they wanted to finish carving it and get it finished on site and then move it, but Catherine ordered that it be done on the way. You can see the stonemasons here who were preparing the stone along the way. It took 9 months to do this, and part of the reason was because of swampy marshland, and they had to only work in the colder months as well, so there was a bit of a stall between there. It wasn't 9 months constant. It was, yeah. This is how the stone is now. 20-foot statue. The pedestal is 25 feet high, 14 feet wide, 44 feet long. Simple calculation, we can work out the cubic volume. I've divided it by 2 because I'm working on the, it's a rectangle, and then we just cut the rectangle in half to work out the cubic volume. There we see it there. Now, limestone and granite average about 175 pounds per cubic foot. This is a very dense granite, so it's actually heavier than this, but I'm going to use this number, and I'm going to be very conservative with the numbers I'm using. It's actually just to, give it a full. So 610 tons at 175 pounds per cubic foot. It's actually heavier than that, and that converts to now to round it down. So all these little nooks and crannies will give the benefit of a doubt. We'll round that down. That's 492 long tons, 550 short tons, but a large part of the stone is actually buried underground, and that adds a considerable amount. So there we see the stone as it was being moved. It was moved to the coast, then it was put on the barge. This is how it was taken. Blocks and tackle everywhere, all over these ships. And just to get an idea, so that's basically where the statue was. So you get an idea of how much of the stone is underground. But let's be conservative, another 35%. So very, very, very conservative, very generous. We're underestimating the weight very much at 675 tons. Very, very generous. The levitated mass used as this example of how modern technology cannot achieve what was achieved in ancient times, because I had lost high technology, anti-gravity, or some sort of stuff like this. So absolute, it's shooting fish in a barrel. This is a baby in comparison. Impressive task nonetheless, but here we see that with simple tools using ancient technology, a much greater feat was achieved without machines, without animals. Again, very simple tools based on ancient stuff. So the often quoted the largest moved stone at the Baalbek temple was 800 tons, and well, this is realistically the Thunderstone, the complete Thunderstone is actually heavier than that. I'm working off. So if you include the base and what we get, but either way, it's a direct comparison. So that this could not be done. Number one, okay, it's just bogus. It's not realistic. This even some of the people who were promoting, who basically made this famous, have stepped back and have admitted, yeah, the Thunderstone and these other things, there's only the hardcore that hold on, because it's a quasi-religious movement, this lost high technology stuff. This is the unfinished stones. Now, all these really, really large stones, 1,200 tons, which are comparable. Probably even the Thunderstone is heavier than this stone because this is limestone. The Thunderstone is granite. And the density of this granite from this site is often overestimated. But the quarry itself from the lowest part is less than 1 degree above, so that this stone would never have had to be lifted by simply grading a road from the quarry to the site, which would have been necessary however you were doing it, unless it's some sort of levitation. Then, yeah, not a problem, no issue at all. Much of the quarry is actually above the temple site, so gravity would have been working to their advantage. So all these huge, massive stones, which were cut as a single block, there's good reasons for that, because across the rest of the Baalbek temple we see basically like 1/3 of this stone, and they're placed next to one another. So if you want to fit a stone together, you make the whole one and then you split it and then you move it individually. And again, yeah, this is explainable. Another key feature, so Baalbek, we have the site where we see Egypt. Lebanese flag still has the famous Lebanese red cedar, which has a strength much higher than is necessary to make rollers for even those largest of the stones, the unfinished stones, or the Thunderstone. The wooden rollers, Lebanese red cedar. There's lots of sites detailing this. It's an important part of construction to understand what the weight and crush limits are of cedar. It's not even worth. I've covered it earlier. Now we go. Red cedar was famous even in the Bible. King Hiram from Tyre, right next to Baalbek. His expertise in stonemasonry was used by Solomon to create Solomon's temple. It's carried on countless examples, but up until this day, the tall cedars of Lebanon, part of a Freemasonic association, wood was basically as valuable as jewels or gold back in Egypt, because they didn't have trees. And so this is a rare example of a sled. It's made out of cedar. Here we see a depiction of them moving a large statue. This is an interesting one because, again, so often it's not included, but key feature is, firstly, you see the foreman clapping. That's necessary so that everyone works in unison. If one team pulls on the rope and the others don't do it in the same time, all the stress goes onto one rope, the rope snaps, and it's going to cause delays, going to cause problems. Lubricating the sled. So again, it's a difference, but lubrication could be water, could be oil, either way. Very important and very simple technology. Anyone, if you've ever got oil on, you understand it's slippery. It's not some genius step to get there to include this. We see the workers keeping up the supply of oil or water, whatever the lubrication they were using, and we see a rail being moved from the back to the front of the sled. So it wasn't just dragged across sand. We actually have depictions of them, and you can see this again, so we move the rail to the front. It sinks partially into the sand. It's easier for lubrication, has a less surface area, so it's less friction. And again, you can move a very heavy load with quite a small amount of force to drag it. This is entirely different from lifting. The forces required is completely different, much less. And often they use calculations of the weight, and to do a deadlift and then do it as a comparison to moving it. That's just drivel. Sliding a couch or a sofa or a coffee table or a dining table, a kid can do it. Sliding it, very much different from lifting. So just lifting and sliding, completely different. Different forces is used. This is a famous, or not so famous, someone who's done some, spent years studying the site in Baalbek. And again, sliding the stone, rollers could have brought it to site. Again, Thunderstone, it's exactly the same things going on, exactly the same technology, ancient technology, very simple tools, levers, pulleys. Red cedar rollers could have brought it onto site. They could have brought it up very close. The smooth edges of the stone reduces friction, and so all you need is one last final effort to bring the stone the last few feet into place. And again, whether it's 800 tons or 1,200 tons, the actual amount of energy needed to slide the stone, especially when it's nice and smooth like this, is much less than lifting it. And so with that, hope you enjoyed, and I'll do a couple more just to finish off, and have a good one.